Oh, why do we put ourselves through this? A good evening. This is the Texas Porch. I am JP Heath. That was real. This is our Cowboys in memoriam wrap up. Subscribing to the Texas Porch podcast, that's a big help for one and for all. Rate us on Apple and on Spotify now. That's a huge help. Subscribing is a big deal as well. Gets the episodes just a tad sooner, live on Facebook and our YouTube channel tonight. So all you kids out there, I know we have a massive young people's audience. We're on the tube too. We're booking it for the older ones and the YouTube as well. I am nationally sought after Cowboys opinion maker JP Heath. Emotional detachment, kids, is the phrase that pays in this one tonight. My Cowboys buddy, my life buddy, Joshua, don't call him Harvard. Give me a big old hug, buddy. How are we doing?
You sound so disappointed. It's almost like you didn't expect this. Like it'll be okay. I mean, nothing's changing, but it'll be okay. You've still got a great wife and dogs and a new house, and you got all this kind of stuff. You would have had the same thing if they would have miraculously pulled that out the other day. So that's my positive thinking for the day.
2 minutes in, you're already trying to talk me off the ledge. And this is genuine. This is real. It's been a tough, I don't know if you can hear the whiskers on the mic. This is week-old beard. Yeah, the game was less than a week ago. I've gained like 15 pounds of grief eating. I mean, it's been a rough few days, but like you alluded to, an emotional detachment. I shut it down. Middle of that third quarter, last quarter and a half were joyful, and I was very expectant of that result that would come. So then I lowered those expectations, and it was fine, fine. But all right, if you know the drill, you can comment if you like, or if you don't, I don't care. Nothing matters. You can comment, you cannot comment, or whatever you want to do. But we're talking about Dak, obviously. We're talking about Mike McCarthy and the coaching staff situation for Dim Boys. And we're talking about, of course, the end of it. And just talking about these bad news Bears, Dallas Cowboys. But rolling out the basketballs now. First off, worried about co-member of the podcast, Kevin, who joined us more last year. He got busy growing up this year. Couldn't come on tonight, but he is in a way as well. He's been ranting about the curtains, and all throughout we're on the group text together during the game. Cowboys fall in that one, 23-17. Kevin's in a way. He is struggling. As usual, the way our opinions line out, he's the most extreme. I'm in the middle, and you're kind of at the other way. It's a great dynamic, and none of it is fake, that you're kind of talking both of us down. But Kevin and I had many other texts today about the curtains, and he's talking about giving it up. No more fandom, which I don't buy only a few days after, because come August, he's going to be predicting another 15-2 finish. But I'm worried about our boy. I'm worried about our podcast boy.
I listened to last week's podcast. That was an interesting one. That was entertaining.
Oh yeah,
he was pretty up for that one. So I feel for him if that's if he's come that low now. So can't say I'll be in the same state of mind as him, but yeah, I mean, to the terms of Bill Parcells, it is what it is. Like, I'm not here to say it's going to change. Like, we're probably be doing the same exact podcast next year. If not, the podcast that says they went 6-11 and all went to hell like last year. So I'm just saying, flush it down. Like, watch another show, watch Netflix, watch, find a good show. You don't have to listen to.
Been doing that.
I guess that's not good advice for me to say don't listen to stuff about the Cowboys on a Cowboys podcast. So other than us, I mean, we keep it to 30 or 40 minutes. Just listen to us and get all the, I mean, obviously that's going to be really in-depth. The more you can get from Dallas Morning News or the Ticket or anywhere, this is where people come to hear their thoughts. So listen to us and then shut it all off. Just watch. Well, the bad things, you've got a good basketball team to go to. So at least you can, they're kind of turning the corner and, I've got the Rockets. So it could be worse.
It could be worse. It could always be worse. We could be a Texans fan, but I don't know. I think having the expectations also is a big deal. And let's get into it. And speaking of comments, we do have some Troy words coming up in a second. I forgot to tease that, but so I think the appropriate place to start is where it ended. And I didn't want to focus on the game too much because that's over. That's done. But just the way everything ended was perfect. It totally summed up this dumpster fire of an organization. The whole game did. It was so emblematic of the last 25 years, how they've been to 15 playoff games and only won 4 of them. It was perfect. You had Cedric Wilson dropping a ball because the sun was in his eyes on an east-west field, and all fields are supposed to be north-south to prevent such a thing. You had the punter kicking it off the scoreboard. You had them not able to execute their last 2-minute situation. The time runs out on their season before they can really get a crack at it. But that ending play, it was an okay play, but it was not the right play call at the right time. And for that to go, for Kellen Moore to think about that, and for Mike McCarthy to call it, and as poorly as Dak executed that, I know they practiced it. That's the common fan thing to say. They just, what do they do? Never practice, but they do. It's just they crumble when it matters most. And that is one phrase that sums up this dumpster fire of an organization from the top. And at the top, that's most to blame. And then it rolls downhill, as we all know. But yeah, before I rant and lose my vision, what'd you think? That last play was just typified the sports pain we've gone through over these last few decades here.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain that one. Like, I actually saw a video. They showed a team, maybe it was the Titans from a couple of years ago. They did the same exact thing. And they did the same exact thing. Their quarterback gave it to the center. And the only difference was the umpire was actually like where he was supposed to be. So the umpire came through because he was there before the offensive line set up, and they spiked it and it worked. But I'm not, that's where they got the idea from. But I mean, so many things have to go right. And obviously the umpire wasn't I mean, he was in a huge hurry, but he's 30 yards down the field. And it's something you gotta, I mean, you say they practiced it. I think they practiced it, but I don't know if they put all the particulars into it. Like, like a Jimmy Johnson or Bill Parcells would have had everything mapped out to every inch of everybody from saying, be sure the umpire gets through. I mean, that's obviously what people talk about. And I mean, I just think it's a disaster of a play call too, like you. And if everything worked out and they got the spot down, you're still looking at having to get a 25-yard touchdown pass on the last play, which isn't going to happen. To speak to the disaster, we're sitting here watching. My brother came over to the game, and it's 23-7 at some point. Was that as bad as it got? 23-7, and nothing's happening
here just to make sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, nothing's happening. And I turned to him and I said, this is going to be close. It's going to be a 3-point game or a 6-point game here on the last drive, and the Cowboys are just going to invent a new way to lose. And we were trying to guess what way it was going to lose, and we couldn't come up with exactly that. But we've seen the same finish so many different times. It's like no matter who's in charge or who's the players, it's just a matter of how it happens. It's it's the curse of being a Cowboy fan, I guess. Most teams don't put themselves in that position. If they would have played better, and like I pointed out, the Babe Loffenberg tweet of, nobody said maybe the San Francisco is just a better team, and
Crazy
they're
concept. Yeah.
yeah, and they're pretty good. I don't think they're winning a Super Bowl or anything, but at the same time, if the Cowboys had that hard of a time with San Francisco, from what I saw from a few of the other playoff teams this week, I don't think Dallas is really a real big threat to beat some of the other teams, particularly like Kansas City, Buffalo. I mean, that's the other conference, but yeah, I mean, you can break down that last play, the last game, all you want. I just think as currently constructed, which I don't think they're an awfully constructed team. Like they have less holes than a whole lot of teams in the NFL. You're always going to have some kind of holes. So it's just a matter. I don't think they were winning a Super Bowl this year. I don't think they were getting a Super Bowl this year. I think they could have won this one. I think they might have had a chance to win next week. But at the same time, being a Cowboy fan, it's going to end in horrific fashion. And they just found a new way. Just add that to the Dez Bryant catch, no catch, the Tony Romo bobbled snap, everything else in your way, going back years ago to whenever they just needed to beat Philadelphia and lost like 50-6 or something on the last game. So they're going to lose in the end, and it's going to be in spectacular fashion. And you just got to, I mean, this is 41-year-old me. Maybe I'm a little bit more mature. You get in bad mood for about 30 minutes and you just go on and, watch the league still going on. Baseball will be going on eventually. You can go watch your Mavericks and Luka. So
baseball.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Speaking of disasters, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll go into the deeper problems of it. But yeah, the last play, obviously no rocket scientists there working on that one, but that's just the tip of the iceberg for all the problems, both from that game and from the season after it got off to such a good start.
You hit on something there that I was going to get to later, so I don't know if it'll come up again, but on my national radio appearance, well, in another not Texas state, they brought me on for some hot Cowboys talk. One of the things that I brought up, and one of the reason we're so tight is because we have same Cowboys brain. And they asked me about where I ranked this disaster and this cesspool of an organization. And I said, this pain ranks to me right behind, and the host said something like, hey, you have the 3 Super Bowl wins, and you have a lot of losses recently. But I ranked it right behind the Dez catch, no catch game as far as the numbness of it and just how this is going to change my thinking. And yeah, I'll watch the games, but it's going to be a lot different coming up in the 22 season. And the other one that stuck out as far as hurting and me just being frozen in disbelief, I remember exactly where I was in my apartment watching. I would have been 20, very 20-somethings-year-old JP, much less sports cynical. And it was Romo dropping that snap against the Seahawks. Like, wait a second. You had that feeling like the game has to go on. There has to be more to it. But the reason and you're my sports therapist here, is the reason I'm really flummoxed about all this is because I didn't think they really would advance past next week. I heard matchup this, matchup that, blah, blah, blah. And I knew San Francisco could win the game. I didn't think they would. I really thought that's probably the thing. I was just kicking myself for getting fooled and tricked again. Just the old Lucy and Charlie Brown metaphor there. But I didn't think they were going to go to Tampa Bay and get a win. There was zero chance they had of, if it would have lined up, going to Green Bay and beating the Packers. I heard some other folks today said, oh, this was a good chance to get to the Super Bowl. I was like, no, it wasn't. So I think as I talk out loud, and I really want to hear you inside of my brain and your 2 cents too, is I think it magnified just how far they still have to go and how it's never going to happen again. Maybe I used in one text, I think it was to you, maybe it's Kevin, maybe it was both, but that line from Red on Shawshank where he said, "Oh yeah, one day," he's talking about you ever think you're going to get out of here, Red? Yeah, one day I'll maybe have a couple marbles rolling around the head. You know the scene, great scene. And it's like, okay, yeah, one day it may happen again when your kids have grandkids. It just underscored how stupid I feel sometimes being a sports fan, and I just get duped every time.
It's going to happen.
No,
Not anytime soon, but it's going to happen. Like, I can't tell you, like, I mean, if we're sitting here to bring up another sport, if we're sitting here 10 years ago, and this is the team that didn't have any championships, the Astros, if you're sitting there, I could have easily said it would never happen in my lifetime. And, I'm not here to give solutions of when it's going to happen, but it's NFL. Things
what
happen.
Are you then?
I mean, Jerry Jones ain't going to be alive that much longer. So then you won't have to deal with that. But in terms of the disappointment, like I don't rank it up there. Like you ranked it way up there. And it's because I didn't think this was really a Super Bowl team. Just they'd shown too many times when they came out flat in really big games. I just thought they weren't going to be able to sneak through. I thought they could beat the 49ers. I thought there was even a chance possibly they could win another game. I wouldn't have guessed it, but it's possible that it could happen. But it didn't. I'd be more disappointed like the Dez catch year. I mean, that was a really good team, and they would have had a chance to go somewhere further because they were on the road in Green Bay. Even the Jared Cook catch year, whenever they were in Dallas, and that Green Bay there, Rodgers beat them. The one that stands out to me, and I'm just listing off here to prove your point of it's never going to happen, but I do think it is. The year that they were really good, they had season tickets. They were 13-3 or something that one year.
07, right?
Yeah, they lose to the Giants whenever just nothing goes right, and the Giants beat them. I think
Patrick Creighton lost it in the lights. Appropriately, we're talking about the sun here for this game, and then Patrick Creighton. The national radio personality that's filled in for me on a Rice basketball game. Patrick Creighton in Houston, the football player Patrick Creighton lost the game in the light. Because wasn't 07 your last season tickets year? Wasn't that?
Yeah, that was
won it. Yeah.
Yeah, that had to be it. And from our cheap seats in the end zone, like Patrick Creighton, you could see like just how clear it was, how there was nobody there, and he just had the wide open field. So that's probably stands out more to me because I was there. But that was those are years that I thought they actually had a shot to, if not win a Super Bowl, at least get there. I mean, they were that 07 year, they were the best team in the league for quite a bit of it. I remember they beat Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers' first touchdown pass came in one of those games that year, which I didn't realize. So I saw on a video. I was like, hey, there's good. I was there for that game, and they actually beat them. But yeah, I mean, it's bad whenever you start listing off all these awful ways they lost the season because it just seems like it always happens, unless it's to the point of where just they're 5-11 seasons or nobody's there. So
or 8-8,
yeah, whatever. I mean, but you look at them this year. The thing is, health comes into play. But you'd think if they're returning the guys that they're going to return, they're not going to be bad next year. They should be. I say should be. They've got some issues to fix, but they're going to be that 10-7 range probably next year, and they'll be right back in here in time to break our hearts again, and for you to say that they're never going to win and Kevin's never going to watch them. It's just part of the.
He said he's done.
It's just part of the misery. You take it. You try not to be in too bad of a mood for the rest of the family for a little while, and then you get on and you just keep on going. And next year in September, you get excited whenever they lose to whoever Super Bowl defending champions in the opener by 3 points. You're like, man, this is looked really good. And it's just a never ending cycle. And that's the way it is in sports until it actually happens. The only thing is they're not getting to the championship games. They're not getting to the Super Bowls. That would make you think like, the heartbreak of the Cubs or whoever else that has gotten there and just fell short. So, yeah, that's just my long-winded way of saying this won't be the last time they disappoint you, and there will be some other kind of way next year that we'll be comparing, and our answers will be different by how we remember all these different disappointments that have gone through.
All right. On that note, this is impromptu, but you made me think about something. You reversed got me psyched down. You did not get me psyched up. You got me psyched down. So I'm going to read something here. How do I switch that around? There we go. So this is, I've read this in the past to you. This is from Bob Sturm on Ticket Fame in Dallas, Fellowship of the Diehards. And this is what comes with the dinner, to borrow part of a Bill Parcells phrase. I'm not going to read the whole thing, so just sum up the first half and read a few lines of it. That this is what comes with the territory. Okay, so but he writes for The Athletic, and this is from a few years ago. And I want to say this could have been after. This is about 6 or 7 years old, so this might have been after the 14 disappointment or the 16. Yeah, this might have been after the Des Catch game. So anyway, he's walking out of Texas Stadium. So this tells you how old it is. So maybe it's older than that. But this dad was talking to this 7 or 8 year old boy, this dad talking to his son. And then the son's really despondent. The son's really upset about this loss, right? Just as I had my alligator tears, and Kevin's griping about curtains, and you're talking us off the sports ledge. But when you're young, you love a sports team, you believe the games and the seasons will all have the happy endings of the Disney movies that you watch. Guess what, son? If you're going to pledge allegiance to a team, as it appears you have with the Dallas Cowboys, I want to welcome you to the Fellowship of the Diehards. Understand that once you do, you're not allowed out of this commitment. And you should also understand that most seasons are going to end in tears. A favorite team is the only thing a male human feels the same about when he is 5, and when he is 45, and when he is 75. You'll change your mind on everything else, girls, money, hobbies, but you will always still feel the adrenaline rush of a win and the gutting sadness of a horrible loss. I didn't say anything to the boy as his dad was handling it, and he might not have welcomed my advice, but I fell for him. Welcome to sports, young man. Someday you may live to see a championship or 5, but most years will end with your guts spilling out onto the floor. There's hope, you're saying. It just comes with it, right? We can't give up, Josh. You've spun me around. Get Kevin on the phone.
Hey, Dallas has won 3 in our lifetimes. I mean, how many teams? There's probably 5 or 6 that have won three Super Bowls in people's lifetimes. It just kind of, when you look back and you're old, like you don't appreciate the ones that they won whenever you were 15 or 16, and then you start to really like. But yeah, that's perfect. I think you send that to me like every year after the Cowboys lose.
Yes, in this excruciating way.
And it's always perfect. I always read it and I'm like, yeah, that is true, especially when you have kids that are around. Like, you know, I got certain kids in sports, they lose a game, and I've been there. Like I try to tell them, you know, it's not the end of the world, it's fine. But I remember when I was there and we lost whatever game. And so it just goes from when you play to anywhere else. And you always get caught up in it. Like I get caught up in the games, and then it happens. And I mean, now the only difference now, you get to where you kind of see it coming now. A few years, like whenever you're 25 or something, you're just sitting there thinking, oh yeah, this is the year it's going to happen. And when now you get to where no, something bad's going to happen. And that is the curse of, being Cowboy fans. Everybody calls that the biggest bandwagon, but I think we're kind of past that. Like, I mean, I know there's a whole bunch of Cowboy fans that are just jerks and you don't want to deal with them, but they're not a bandwagon anymore. Like a bandwagon wins every once in a while. You know, the bandwagon would be the Patriots or whatever that's winning every year. The bandwagon would be
the Buccaneers fans that just popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, the Buccaneers fans that just got there. The whatever sport, you know, your stereotypical ones. But that's just, it's kind of funny in my book because I understand why they say it, because it's just such a big fan base. And maybe some people do like them just for the reason everybody likes them, but man, that's not a good bandwagon to jump on. I wouldn't recommend for somebody that didn't know anything about football, because I've always thought,
stay away. Yeah.
you know, it's blissful. Like if you just want to get into sports, like you're 20 and you didn't grow up and you just want to get in there, say, yeah, go root for the Yankees or whatever. Maybe they're it's a bad case too, since they hadn't won anything in a while. But yeah, sticking with the team and knowing you can't change every year, it's yeah, I mean, it's going to end badly a lot more than it ends the way you want it to. But keep on putting yourself in position. I mean, the Eagles won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles a few years ago. Stuff like that happens. Like, I know it's got to be a different breed. You have to get the right things, the right coach in place and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just lightning in a bottle, and it happens where, you know, the teams win the World Series, like the Braves or something.
Yeah.
Had to throw that one in. But
I
this is my way of saying, once again, like, there's no reason to think the Cowboys are winning a Super Bowl anytime soon, but crazier things have happened.
So I wanted to get in these comments from Troy. There are a couple other items still on the list if we have time. And I predict a handful of Cowboys offseason podcast as well. And truth be told, thought about even splitting this off into just a regular podcast in the offseason. And anyway, that's for another announcement, hopefully coming up here soon. But so Troy Aikman was on the ticket in Dallas this morning, and he made some national news with his comments about how San Francisco was playing Dallas with the 4-man rush, and how, I mean, and this circles back to Vic Fangio kind of saying, hey, we got the blueprint on how to play Dak and the Cowboys. And it goes basically with having the talent to get 4 men from the rush on the defensive line and being able to have man coverage on the outside. So that's kind of the basis for this question. But so that was the one that got it. I'm going to get to that. But the one that didn't get the national attention that I got just as much out of is the identity. Like, what is this? And I don't think you heard this. You saw, I think you saw the quote of the other one. But this one it was great, and it's a much shorter clip, so I decided to start with this one. But just as Troy Aikman on the ticket in Dallas this morning talking about the identity. What is the identity of this Mike McCarthy Cowboys team now?
And I think it's a good question, because I'm not sure myself, as someone who's watched them. And I say that because they did under Jason Garrett. They built the offensive line. That was really important to him, and wanted to have a blueprint similar to what won us Super Bowls back in the 90s. And so they invested in the offensive line. Those players hit with Zach Martin and Tyron Smith and Travis Frederick and, you know, so forth. And they've still invested in the offensive line, but I don't know that they're built around the strong running game that they were.
So did you hear that, by the way? I should have asked you beforehand if you could heard that. Did you hear all that?
Yeah.
From 8-Ball, Troy. Man, I love that. That's a point. I'll listen to the whole show anyway, but I perk up and sometimes I go back and listen to more snippets, and just hearing Troy just going back to those old days when kids that they actually won Super Bowls going back then. But that was interesting to me because obviously he's very observant in his gig and his experience. What is the identity? You don't know what this team really is built around. They can't be the run, not this year's team, with the way Zeke admirably limped towards the end. Tony Pollard was banged up. So do they try to overhaul the running game? I think Zeke has one or I know Tony Pollard has one more guaranteed year. Zeke has at least 2 more after he held the team hostage there a few years ago. But just the offensive line has gradually slipped. So they're in this stage, and that's why Troy pointed it out. You don't know what they are. Like, is this Dak's team? I really think I know whose team it should be. It should be number 11. It should be it should be Micah Parsons' team. He is so good. Read some folks saying that. I mean, he's the best defensive player, obviously, that the Cowboys had, and their best player. So, but is it a defensive team? Like, they were so bad on defense last year. So really, that got me thinking. I still don't know. And even no matter what you say here in a few seconds, I don't think you can convince me what their identity is. And if you say it's number 4, well, that kind of worries me a bit. And maybe it explains a lot why they ended up the way they did. That last play as the best example of that.
I don't have a good answer for that one. I think that they think it's number 4. Like, there's just so many. That's just because when he got rolling, which is usually against bad teams, but he'd throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. They beat somebody 56-14. But there were just so many games where they weren't. They're definitely not a rushing team. Like, I think that went way by the wayside this year. So if they're going to get back to rushing, they need to address the offensive line before anything else. But yeah, I think whenever he was talking about identity, I was thinking strictly on offense, but the defense, that should be like, I don't know where you would go to build, but they were really good for the most part this year. And Parsons was great. That pass rush was great whenever they had everybody. It was just, I just don't know, because there's like the 49ers kind of move the ball back all over the field against them, at least early on. So it's not like, as good as they can look at times whenever teams are sitting there and running on them, that, maybe shoring up the run defense somehow. But yeah, the more and more I talk, the more and more I realize that no, there's not any answers of what they are. And I don't think that, I'm sure some point, probably more in a podcast down the road, we'll bring back your list of Dak Prescott and everything. I don't know if something just wasn't right with him, because he looked so good the first 5 or 6 weeks, and that was even against the Buccaneers and some pretty good teams. And by the end, is like, he was really, really bad on Sunday. So I don't know. He's there for a long time, so I kind of have a feeling that that's going to be what they try to do. And I just throw up my hands and say, I don't know. I don't think they're terrible in most any area. Like, they're not just a train wreck of a team. Pretty much anywhere where you go, and outside of maybe coaching, and you say they're just really bad in this area and they have to get better. Because I don't think their passing game's terrible. Their run game, blah, whatever. But when you got that run game, you got to be able to pass it a lot. So yeah, I guess the identity that would be preferable for them to have an actual shot at winning the Super Bowl be keeping those offensive guys in place and adding maybe even another piece or two to the defense. Maybe somebody that'll help them be more balanced, where, it seemed like whenever they were playing passing teams, they were a little bit better off against them, as opposed to the San Francisco game or Arizona where Kyler Murray's running, stuff like that. So no, I don't have any answers, but defense would be the way to go, I think, if you want to take another step next season.
By the way, you mentioned Dak there. And yeah, I think if you had to answer one way, I think that would be it. That's what their identity is. He's getting the $40 million contract now. He got his bag. But through his first 6 seasons and through number 9's first 6 seasons, heard this today, identical 1-3 playoff records, Dak Prescott and Tony Romo. And he is 17-17 his last 34 games against teams with a winning record. That's what he is. They beat up on a trash can division. And you show anybody that can get some semblance of a pass rush, he's fine. He seems like a great human being. He didn't show the best leadership skills, condoning fans throwing trash, saying credit to them.
That's a very Eagles thing of him to do right there.
Yeah, very, very.
Along with the fans throwing the trash.
Yeah, and very Eagles fans of the Cowboys fans to do that. Shame on them. But
that's what I'm saying.
So, yeah, okay, there you go. Anyway, all right, here's one more Troy comment, because this speaks to a big picture, because I do want to talk about, before we sign off here in the next few minutes, what happens with Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore, and are you stuck with one of them? But this is surprising because you don't hear guys talk about their own a lot. But Troy's in a unique position. He's refreshingly honest, And I hang, as I mentioned earlier, I hang on every syllable that he utters in these weekly interviews. Again, reset it. Troy on with the ticket, the Musers in Dallas. And in this one, he's discussing to reset it again, that made national news, how they weren't able to get it to CD Lamb enough, and going with how the game has changed a lot since his days.
San Francisco rushed 4 guys for the most part. They blitzed occasionally, but they're a 4-man rush football team. But a lot of times when you say that, then you think, oh, well, they're playing coverage. Well, they mixed in some coverage, but there was a lot of single coverage on CeeDee Lamb. And I would tell you, as I said in our game last week at halftime, when they couldn't get the ball to Devontae Smith, when the Eagles couldn't, if it was back when I was playing, and I hate going back to that point because nobody cares, but what I see around the leagues, not just Dallas, it was in Philadelphia, I've seen it with a lot of teams, that a lot of these offenses, they want to scheme things. The coordinators it's all about scheme. Rather than this corner is playing soft, he's scared to death, just run the route tree. Just run a comeback, run a dig route, run a curl, run anything. And you're going to complete the pass whenever you want. And Irvin would have had 10 catches at halftime if they had played us the way that they played CeeDee Lamb in that game. So I just don't quite understand that. It's interesting. I was at Madden's memorial service yesterday in Oakland, and Peyton Manning was there. And we got to talking about the game, and I was having this conversation with him, and he agreed that, more and more you just see that teams, the game's not that difficult. If I've got a great player at wide receiver and a corner is playing him single coverage, throw him the ball.
Yeah.
He's going to win most of the time, and that's what they do in Green Bay with Devontae Adams. But for some reason, a lot of other teams, including Dallas in that game on Sunday, and I'm sure that the coaches go back and look at that and say, man, why didn't we do that? They did a couple times. They hit the one catch he had, and then they had another one where the DB played it pretty well. But for the most part, they just didn't take advantage of some of the looks that I think they had and they could have.
So Troy jokes about it some there, and you'd have to say part of that's good old day syndrome. And being the second greatest quarterback in this storied franchise's history, yeah, he's going to get a little nostalgic, and this is how we did it. But so much of the game has changed, and that's an indictment on Dak. I think that's an indictment on Kellen Moore, and Mike McCarthy is supposed to be this big offensive mind, but it ties into the identity thing. Like, what are you? If you're a run-first team, you can establish that and then pick up those quick hitters to Lamb. It's all about flash and substance, with flash over substance, flash and style, and the glitz and the glamour. It points back to the guy at the top, Jerry Jones. This team will never win because he's at the top. I know I'm just lumping him in there and jumping on the pile, but it all ties together to me, and how the identity isn't what it needs to be, like it was even in 2014 and heck 2016, probably Dak and Zeke's best year together. That will be. And then you've got an offensive coordinator that had a good half of the season, and not coincidentally, that's when Dak had his good half of the season. So I don't have the football mind that Troy does, but I liked how he put that. Not just to be able to stick it to somebody, but that it really puts it in a nutshell that a great football mind like that is one of the same things that we are. Like, what in the tarnation is going on here that they can't get something to go on between two of their supposed star players? I don't know. What'd you think?
Listening to those Aikman comments again, I think it was kind of a total indictment on Kellen Moore. Like,
yeah,
you have to be all fancy and nice when the basic stuff will hit you. I would say, good old boy syndrome with Troy Aikman. Irvin would have had 10 catches in the first half. How many games in his career did Irvin have 10 catches for the game? But to that point, the identity of those Cowboys was running the ball, and they would just flat out do it, keep on, make you like it. And that was the offensive line. I mean, it's unfair to compare these Cowboys to those Cowboys. It's unfair to compare anybody in the league to that team before, salary cap days hit everybody. But yeah, I think what Aikman's saying, and he's got a point on it, is sometimes you don't have to be fancy. Sometimes just do what's there. And I think that's what got Garrett in trouble a lot too. Like the same thing, there'd be certain things and he'd have to be the wonder boy. Like Kellen Moore's kind of got to be from time to time where, certain things are open, just take advantage of it. And I mean, y'all talked about it last week with Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. Like, I don't know if one or both of them getting a job. I don't think both of them will get a job. I think Quinn's to the point where he can pick it. So I don't know who's going to be here, who's not. If they're both here, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Like, you have to do some introspective thinking of getting everything in place. I'm still not sold that Mike McCarthy is any kind of mastermind game technician, which kind of gets, the thing is, who are you going to replace him with? Like, I don't say you fire McCarthy and hire either one of those to lead the team. So no perfect answers there, but I see where Troy Aikman's coming on that of, no need to be fancy, do what works. And maybe that's what hurt him at times this year where, if something's open, just do it.
Well, you're right. Kevin and I did talk about that some. So, and the other thing I had written down about Mike McCarthy's future is, but he's obviously coming back. So there's no need to really break that down unless we're doing a daily talk show. Oh, that'd be crazy if anybody could ever get that together. But it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. If it's McCarthy, you could bring in my pick. Originally, instead of McCarthy, I wanted to see Matt Rule get a shot, but he wasn't going to get that shot. And maybe that was probably a good call. The way things
he's got one foot out the door in Carolina right now.
Yeah, so. He's going to be coaching. Take your pick of the SEC or I guess SEC the only conference.
He'll be great at it too. Like,
yeah, he'll be great.
I still think he's a good coach. Maybe. Oh yeah, going off on a tangent there. Maybe he's more specified for college, but yes.
If you gave me my pick right now of any coach, it would be Kyle Shanahan. And even if that happened, like when McCarthy was hired, it wasn't a bad hire. Nobody could say, "Oh, this is just terrible." The first year wasn't great. He had some built-in excuses, and even the most cynical of us would kind of have to give him a pass. But this year, it really, really crumbled there towards the end. And for the playoffs to go that way was obviously the reason the previous 40 minutes or so we've been griping and moaning. But even if Kyle Shanahan was the coach, which I know he's not going to be, but just work with me, it doesn't matter because Jerry's still at the top and the S still rolls downhill. Eventually it'll be Steven, the one guy with a brain, no surprise as a Rice guy, Will McClay, that's been doing a great job with the draft. Yeah, I'm a little biased, but he's there and he got the contract extension a week or so ago, was it? So I don't know, but as he is this GM, he's been interviewed for, he's been teased to getting interviewed for other GM jobs, but he's the director of scouting. But because of the ego and the things that go on the way they do in Frisco, it's not going to change. It doesn't matter. So dang it, Josh, I flipped back to being negative again. You got me all positive, and now I'm back to being negative again. But anyway, I want to play.
Well, just to bring one thing up.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I got some happy tunes to play.
You had it. I was going to say, I see where you're going with that music. But yeah, I mean, you talked about Parcells. When he came in, you said, well, he couldn't do it either. The only thing I would say is Parcells went into absolute dumpster fire, like a 5-11 mess, and he had to rebuild the whole thing. What would happen if they brought in a great coach? I mean, what's to say they couldn't make a few tweaks and tear down stuff for about a week and just get it? I think, but that's not going to happen.
No, it doesn't matter.
But I think if they would bring in a Parcells top, not Parcells obviously, but if they could bring in a great coach, replace McCarthy with it, and keep some things in place, like don't have a terrible game manager coach that has been lost for the majority of his career with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. Everybody cry. It's been a while since I've heard that song.
Not as appropriate. I had some This is how bad it's been for me lately. What was it? I was playing some Adele. This is how bad it's been for me.
Okay, which Adele song were you playing? Was it
This one, can you hear it? Someone Like You. Which it's not totally, but it got me in that heartbreak mode. You're kind of thinking back to the way it used to be in the 90s, you know, and it's not that way anymore, Josh. So, all right.
To be fair, outside of like a Patriots dynasty, how many teams have had what the 90s Cowboys had? 80s 49ers, 70s Steelers. It just doesn't happen. And Patriots extended it for 2 decades. So,
all right. Let's get out of here.
Let's go for 1, not for 3.
Yeah. 1 title, you're saying?
Yes, 1.
Just 1. I think you need to put away the sauce tonight. Whatever it is you have, it might be good, but you need to give it up. It's not going to happen. But all right. Thanks a lot, Josh. Thanks a lot. I think we accomplished a lot, at least right now. You made me feel a little bit better before I sabotage myself there at the end. But we'll be talking to you here sometime soon, okay?
Absolutely.
That's Josh. I'm JP. Remember, you can subscribe on the Texas Porch podcast feed. Get it in your phones a little bit earlier and rate us, please. That helps out. And go to that Mitch Design, the TexasPorch.com for our archived videos. Have a great rest of this day or night. God bless you. God bless Texas. And we'll talk to you next time out here on the Texas Porch. Nothing matters, Josh.
Adele. Wow.